Well, hi, everyone. This is Michael, and welcome to the Loveworks Dreamers Doers podcast. We are bringing you today episode number 122. And it's a Loveworks checking out Dreamers and Doers. We just want to welcome you. You are giving the thing in life that is the most precious, whether you realize it or not, and that is your time. So, again, thank you for checking us out. And if you are returning back to Dreamers and Doers, thank you. We appreciate just your time as well. We know that there are definitely plenty of great options out there in the podcast universe.
That is right. And our hope with the Dreamers and Doers podcast is that each week our special guests will connect with you wherever you find yourself today, and they're going to inspire you to become the best version of yourself for tomorrow.
Well, Carolyn, I know that you know this, but we absolutely love personal growth. Carolyn, do you love personal growth?
I do love personal growth. You know, it's not always easy, Michael, but it can be a blast. I will say that.
I totally agree. You have your on days, and then you potentially have your other days. Fill in the blank, whatever word this might be appropriate. But each week we like to take a few minutes and curate different resources for you. Carolyn and I and our team here at Loveworks, we love to do some of the heavy lifting. So we're going to flex our muscles for you, and then we're going to offer up suggestions. Just think that we're like the golden corral of leadership and personal growth. So plenty of great options out there for you. We might highlight different types of music and song suggestions, different influencers out there that are doing really cool stuff. But today, Carolyn and I are going to get transparent with you, and we're going to share with you, especially with this upcoming school year, about something new and different that we have recently tried. So Carolyn, I was a little surprised to hear about what you recently tried. So do enlighten us with your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are like a new listener, maybe you don't know who I am, I'm the type of person, I'll pick on myself for a little bit. One, physical activity, especially sports related things, are not necessarily my favorite. And I think back to when I was in elementary school, middle school, high school, and if there was something that I didn't immediately kind of catch on and I wasn't good at, I kind of just put to the side and I was like, that's not for me. And it turned out, Michael, for a lot of that, it was sports. And so I just kind of, if it wasn't something that I was immediately good at, I just kind of put it on the shelf. And I figured it's not really for me. And so I went through a lot of years without trying a lot of sports. Anyway, I've gone through a lot of time without trying Topgolf. I've been invited out by friends. It's really fun, they tell me. And I just keep telling them, like, it's golf. That's not really my thing, you know? And so they wore me down. I finally went, and I was really out of my element. I realized, Michael, I had never held a golf club outside of a putt, like like a putter.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna throw this at somebody. This is gonna injure someone. Who knows? Anyway, finally went, had a ton of fun, and went with I would say the right group of people too. So people who encouraged that it was not just about the score, it was not just about winning, but really about doing your personal best. So each person had a goal of why they were playing and why they were there, and really helped alleviate I think the maybe the tension I was going to put on myself of like, well, you have to do good and you have to win. Or whatever, you're going to embarrass yourself. And it's like, no, we're just going to have fun. We're going to try something different. We're going to get out of our comfort zone because it helps.
That is so good. I hope I can see pictures and videos. We'll definitely upload that on Loveworks social media. But I wouldn't have guessed though about, well, at least 5 or 6 years ago, I wouldn't have guessed about the athletic part. I don't know if we've ever shared this story on our 121 other podcasts, but you and I and other amazing students here at Loveworks had a plank challenge, and Carolyn, you won.
Okay, that's true, but I will argue that the plank challenge is not a solely physical thing. It was very much a mental thing, mental challenge.
Well, I don't know if my shoulders, my forearms, and my core agrees with you, but nonetheless, I love that story, and I think that's something important to realize about personal growth, because I think each of us have our thing or two that we naturally gravitate towards. I think there's something powerful when you just step out, and even though you might feel a little anxious, you might have a little fear, whatever the case might be, but just try something new and different. Of course, as long as it is positive. Just real briefly, I'll mention the thing recently that I tried, and it was somewhat athletic as well too. Carolyn, you actually saw me play, but it was the game pickleball. And pickleball seems to be just a sport that I keep hearing more and more about. But it's if you haven't played before, I feel like it's a combination of tennis and racquetball. But it was just really, really fun. We took some students out to an event, and we had the opportunity to get out there on a pickleball court and play. And I definitely plan on finding future opportunities to get out there and see if I can improve my pickleball skills, because I had a little challenge out there playing, but it was a lot of fun. So we hope that those suggestions encouraged you, motivated you to think about what is that something that you would like to try and just get out there and step out of your comfort zone. Well, I'm ready to get in the zone, and it is the conversation zone. And so let's explain our format of Dreamers and Doers. Each week, we have the fortunate opportunity to be able to have a conversation with someone that we've identified that is a dreamer and is a doer. And we're going to take a few minutes, and we're definitely going to hear about part of their dream story. But we also want to hear about what were some of the early initial steps that our dreamer and doer took to reach their goal and to reach their dream. And we hope that it's going to encourage you to get from the place that you are today to the place that you desire to get to tomorrow. So let's meet our dreamer and doer, friend of Loveworks. Her name is Laura Carnagie.
Laura's dream of training for the Olympic trials and competing in the Olympics came to an abrupt end following a debilitating car accident in 2011. Refusing to give up on life, she built a company that would allow her to make connections. Utilizing the skills that she gained from studying fashion design and fashion marketing at the Colorado Institute of Art, she started Carnegie Art Company, where she uses her paintings, mixed media works, costumes, photography, and sculptures to guide her viewers in an exploration of emotions, history, and connections as she tells a story of life the way that she sees it. Live to Connect has become the creed by which Laura now embraces each day. She's a current board member of the Pauls Valley Chamber of Commerce and Pauls Valley Arts Council, a Paul Harris Fellow, Rotary International, and is a frequent guest speaker for businesses, churches, and schools. Laura lives on a ranch in Oklahoma with her family and a myriad of animals.
Hey, Laura, great to see you.
Hey, Michael. Hey, Carolyn. How are you guys?
We are doing awesome. Thanks for joining us today.
Good. Thank you for welcoming me. I appreciate it.
Well, Laura, you heard us tell on ourselves recently. Carolyn and I both have tried something that is new and different. So just out of curiosity, before we roll into our first dreamer and doer question, is there anything recently that you have tried and stepped out to do?
Absolutely. I would say it actually has to do with our business, the way that we approach our customers, which has been kind of fun, a little scary, a little just kind of the way it's supposed to work, I guess, this time. I think we get used to being in our habits of what we normally do and kind of thinking this is traditionally how business works for us in the past. And we're kind of taking a completely different direction where we actually just jumped right into the farmer's market instead of opening another restaurant right away. We are kind of letting our guests at the market be our test kitchen instead of us saying what we like and trying to force it on our customers. We're letting them have that open, direct feedback. And it is so much fun to be right there with them in a different way than we've approached business before. So it's a lot of fun. I'm loving it.
Cool.
Yeah. I love that. Hey, we're kicking off with I think a dream already kind of coming to life here, a vision that but I think this is a good intro to our very first question, our first official question, I should say. And we know that you're a dreamer, Laura. We also know that you're a doer, but which one comes more naturally to you?
So I would say the dreaming comes more natural to me. I think that has to do with the fact that as an artist, you kind of see life more visually within your brain a little bit, and you kind of get to create this magical world in anything that you can dream up. I mean, it's your world. Nobody can tell you no. And so then that becomes the challenge of then sometimes taking that dream and figuring out ways to navigate through to the doing part. So I know as a kid, I was a huge dreamer. And I remember I went to fashion design school. I was fashion design, fashion marketing was my direction. And I had a sign that I put up in my apartment wall, and it said, just follow the little girl's dreams and you can only succeed. And it's like, if we just go back to that core of what we want and what we dreamt when we thought everything was completely possible and nothing would stand in our way. If we go back to those things, that's definitely the dreamer. And then the doer kind of has to step in and learn skills that maybe don't always come natural, but learn those skills that then help take that dream and put it into action. So definitely a dreamer for sure.
Absolutely love that.
Definitely.
And my natural tendency, Laura, right now would be to go next right into your Olympic dream story. However, though, I want to pull back just a little bit, and you mentioned just being this young dreamer growing up. So we'd love for our dreamers and doers to get to know you just a little bit more. So kind of take us back to what life was like growing up. Anything that you'd want to share either about your family, a particular middle school or high school memory that stands out?
Yeah, I would say being very young, my dad was a dreamer, my mom was a doer. And so I kind of had the best of both worlds that way. So I was born in Germany, got an opportunity to live in New Mexico when we first came back to the States. And so I grew up at a very young age going to rain dances and on the Navajo reservation. And that's where my love for fabric and the sounds of, you had the ring dancers and all of the, just everything, just feeling the heartbeat of the earth, if you will, through all of these adventures. As a junior in high school, I got the opportunity to go to the Philippines as an exchange student through Rotary. And I will tell you that it opened my mind that all of these cultural experiences that I had growing up just kind of was a culmination of, I at that point was my own individual unit. I belonged to a family, but I was finding myself. And when I stepped off the plane in a country that I didn't know the language, I was 16 years old. And I stepped off the plane, and here was my host father and my host brother met me, and just instantly they welcomed me and loved me within their home. And it was, my family was always really good about trying to open the home and welcoming people in. But it was one of the first times that I'd had it so openly reciprocated that I thought, there are so many good people in this world just trying to do the best for their family, that was a pivotal moment in my mind on how I looked at everyone across the board. We all just try to do our best. And some of us do better at different times than others, and sometimes we fail pretty miserably. but that was my experience, living in a different country as my own individual unit, having my own experiences, truly changed my life for the better for the rest of my life. Amazing. Yeah.
Laura, I love hearing that, and just the idea of your love for art and and for music and fabric kind of coming to life where it did paints a really wonderful picture. But then also the love of connection as well. I think we can hear that in the story of you going to the Philippines and seeing what welcome looks like and what love looks like even. So were you always interested in fashion from a young age? And then when did kind of the Olympic side come out?
Yeah, no, I love that. I always interested in fashion and colors and kind of the textures of fabric. And I think that's from the velvet skirts and, just everything from those rain dances. From a really young age, my mom sewed with 5 kids. She sewed. And so I remember really super young sitting on her lap sewing, and finally I looked at her and I said, leave me alone, because she wanted to follow all the rules. Well, I didn't like rules. I was like, I don't need a seam allowance. I don't need, found out I needed a seam allowance when I didn't sew an adequate seam allowance in my skirt my senior year, and I sat down in my history class and had to go change into gym shorts because I didn't leave enough. So rules are good. There are some rules you need to follow. But honestly, the dream of the Olympics came in Partly because I wanted the uniforms. I loved, I loved the colors. I loved the textures. I loved, I wanted that uniform. We moved at one point from New Mexico to Colorado, and with 5 kids, what do you do with 5 kids that doesn't cost a lot of money, but you get them outside and you do outside stuff. And Denver was filled with all sorts of amazing activities. And so we did Volks marches, which is where you kind of pay $5, and it used to be $5, so it was a long time ago. Pay $5 and you'd walk to different checkpoints up along through different mountain trails, and you'd get stamps. And if you finished your stamp book, then you would get a medal and a t-shirt at the end. Well, that was motivation for any kid to keep walking, right? Where's the next stamp? And we'd all try to race up to get the next one. So I'm second oldest of 5. So it was at that Volks March, one of them, that we had a gentleman, Bob Carlson, who was a race walker, approach our family and say, hey, why don't you guys all come to a fun run race walk? Well, it was a national championship. And I had run track, but I hadn't, really done much other than just kind of your little 7th, 8th grade track. And when I was watching an Olympic runner who had turned race walker, Visha Salek, I was watching her. Number one, she was gorgeous, tall, skinny, blonde. And I thought, oh, that's what I want to be. I'm now short, you can't change that. But she was just this gorgeous model who was a runner who had turned race walker. And I just studied and watched what she was doing. And I thought, okay, I'll give this a try. And so we went ahead and entered, it was a 5K. And I won in my age division. Now, I'm sure the judges were pretty lenient with me on my form and technique. And I think the only competition was my younger sister at that point in that age range. But I fell in love with the spirit of competition that I'd never felt before. And so there were so many more races that came after that. And at that point, it was not an Olympic sport for women. It was for men. And so I was racing for the shoes. I was racing to win shoes, because that was one of the awards that you'd get, is you'd get a medal or you'd get a glass, trophy or something like that. And so I started racing for the shoes, honestly, loved it. And then I found that it was a way to kind of challenge yourself physically in a way that I'd never experienced being challenged before. Pushing through what you would once think was hurt in your body, you begin to kind of sit back and think, well, no, that's not hurt. That's just an area in the body that I need to strengthen. And it was showing, weaknesses. And so I think it was kind of more of a whole metaphor for how I live my life. I tend to push really hard and want to be all in. I'm kind of a sink or swim. It's kind of, if you're pushing hard and you're finding that area of weakness, a lot of times it's an opportunity to go, this is too hard, I'm done, I'm not going to do it. But for me, I have naturally always kind of looked at it as, what do I not know? What do I not understand? Who do I need to go to find those answers that can teach me the things that I don't know? And so that race walking became just its own medium for me to challenge myself in a way that I never knew how to challenge myself before. When you end up pushing beyond any physical connection with your physical body, and you become nothing but just your intellect that is existing out in nature, out on your workouts, pushing yourself and realizing, okay, I didn't exceed where I wanted to in this spot, but that's okay. We don't have to be perfect at everything we do, but if we can find happiness and peace while we're striving to learn more and experience more, that for me is living. And that's what I found in the race walking, was that, I continued to race well. My parents continued to put me in opportunities and situations, for the most part, where I could race in Denver. When I was 16, my parents moved 3 hours outside of Denver to Burlington, Colorado, tiny little town. And there again, I thought my life was over as a freshman in high school. You're moving me from Denver to this tiny little town. And I have to tell you, some of the best experiences in life happened because of moving to that small town, and the relationships that I've the people that blessed my life then, that whether we're still in contact now or not, just due to the way life happens, but the things that I experienced while being there blessed my life in ways that I can't go back and try to recreate in any other situation than the way it happened. So I was approached at that point by the U.S. Olympic wrestling coach. And he's like, listen, we don't have an Olympic coach for women at this point in time for race walking, but if she wants, she can come live at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. I'll work with her. I'll train her. She's going to have to figure a lot of it out on her own. But as a family, we talked about it. And there were some things with my family that, being second oldest, my brother was already gone out of the house and just needed to be home a little bit more to help with siblings. And I think there was a natural little bit of kind of, not resentment, but maybe frustration. And so when the opportunity came to go to the Philippines, man, I jumped on it. I was like, I'm out of here. I've been the big sister for a while. I'm ready to go have fun. Went to the Philippines, came back, graduated high school, got into fashion design school, and it still was not an Olympic sport for women at that point in time. And so I met my husband. He's an executive chef. I figure, you can feed us, I can clothe us, we're good, right? We can take care of whatever family we have.
Now you're talking Carolyn's language, Laura.
Exactly.
Getting into the food.
We love food. So we'd had our two children. They're 7.5 years apart, and I kind of got into mom mode and loved, PTA and my husband with restaurants and those type of things. I was supporting him, encouraging him, and he was supporting it and making it possible that I could just be home with our kids that we had worked really hard to have. Well, when our youngest was about a year old, my younger brother, who has competed in 3 different Olympics, competed in Greece, I looked at my husband and I said, we've got to go watch him in Greece. And so we backpacked through Europe. My husband and I backpacked through Europe for a couple of weeks and then went down to Greece and watched him in the Olympics. Well, when we got home from that trip, I was kind of sitting and I was reading just kind of a church magazine. I was just kind of reading some things and kind of pondering some things. And there was a thought that came through my mind, and it was, if you knew you could not fail, what would you do? And I thought, wow, well, if success is guaranteed, then those dreams that I've had all my life, it's a given. I'm putting them into motion. And so I contacted a friend of mine across the street who ran marathons. She was a personal trainer. And I'm like, hey, I need to lose some weight. I want to start competing. And she laughed at me because I was nothing near what looked like someone who cared about exercise or their body. And, remember, my husband's a French chef, an Italian chef, so I loved food.
Yeah.
But so I just said, hey, I need to do something. She goes, yeah, come back to me when you're serious. And she said, 90% of what we get out of life is what we eat. And she says, I can teach you how to take care of your body and do all those things, but if you're not eating correctly, it's not going to do anything. And so I went back to her about a week and a half later after I talked with my husband, and I said, I have a dream. I said, don't laugh. Do not laugh at my dream. But I want to compete. I want to race again. And he did not laugh. And he said, okay, but let's look at reality. At this point, we lived in Utah. 6-7 months out of the year, it's so cold, your lungs freeze, burn when you're out racing, when you're out working out and stuff. So it was like, how are you going to do a 20K on a treadmill? How are you going to get to California and work with the Olympic coach? How are you going to, do all these things? But he helped make it possible. He believed in me enough to help make it possible. And so I think that was vital, to have someone who believed enough that regardless of the outcome, regardless of whether I ever made it to the Olympics or not, he believed in me to the point that I took that confidence and was willing to put the time and effort in. And that was that doer part, right? Having somebody say it's worth the doing because you're worth the dream, if that makes sense.
Wow.
Hey, Laura, I wanted to jump in just real quick. And I know there's more to this story that we want to get to.
You're good.
For those that are unfamiliar, can you paint just a real quick picture of what race walking is?
You bet. That's a good question. Race walking is basically forcing yourself to walk as absolutely fast as you possibly can without running. And there are 2 main rules. You have to have a heel of your advancing foot and your hind foot a heel on the advancing foot and a toe of your hind foot on the ground at all times to the naked eye. So you end up with kind of a little duck walk in a sense. But when you watch those, now I will tell you, my brother has impeccable form. My form was never as good as his, but I'd also had babies, so that changes the way our hips move. So yeah, it's a heel and a toe on the ground at all times to the naked eye, and your advancing leg as it comes around to the front, your knee must be straight. So for someone who's double jointed, you can almost end up landing kind of mid foot, but ideally you're always heel to toe. And so that's where it's that straight leg, bent heel to toe as fast and as hard as you can. And I found that the more upper body strength I had, the faster I could go because I could propel myself forward faster. So now, mind you, I never reached exactly what my goal was, but there was purpose in that goal that I didn't know about when I started the goal.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so we may get to that part, however you want to do it.
That's good. Carolyn, did you catch all that? And I feel like you and I may need to have a friendly competition.
A friendly what?
Competition.
Oh, is that what you're I was like, a friendly conversation or no, truly.
Okay, Laura, thank you for appeasing me, giving us the popcorn break, and now continue in the story. We're getting to California and your coach, and
yes. So it was wonderful. I was on track to qualify for Olympic trials. I needed to shave about a minute and a half off of my time. Now it's a 20K distance, and I needed to shave about a minute and a half, which was doable with where I was at and how long I had to get there. But I would train in Utah, and then I would do a couple of races in California. I went to New York, did a race, and that's where balance comes into place, was that race in New York, because I had been so OCD about what I ate and how I ate and measured everything and all of that. Well, when I went to New York, I didn't take any of my food with me, and I had an egg bagel just before my race. Let me just say, I didn't finish the race. So it was a really hard learning lesson on we can have this perfect picture in our mind, but life requires balance. And so how do we find that balance? So fast forward a little while, I'm enjoying the training. I'm loving the challenges. Traveling back and forth, we would take our kids to Disneyland anytime I'd go to a race. So they were like, when are you racing again? Let's go. So it was always, race in Florida. We'd go to Disney World. The kids loved it. And so as a family, I felt unbelievably loved and supported by my family. And I think they enjoyed parts of it as much as I enjoyed parts of it. So flash forward to 2011, May 16th of 2011, I was in a horrific car accident that completely changed the trajectory of my life. I mean, there's just no doubt. And I was the only one in the car. There were a lot of miracles that happened during the accident that happens, but I had my hands on the steering wheel. I saw the guy coming up really fast on me, and I had my hands on the steering wheel and closed my eyes, and I thought I knew I was going to be obliterated from the face of the earth. I just knew that was my gut feeling, was I will no longer exist on this earth when I open my eyes. And I opened my eyes, and somehow, miraculously, I was still on this earth. And at that moment, all of the training that I had put in, I didn't realize that my body needed the strength to withstand and recover from that accident. So that whole, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? Having me go back to working out and getting strong, I think God knew I was going to need something different in my life, but he needed me to see a different picture to get me there. And so I was willing to put the 5 hours a day in my workouts. I was willing to put the 60 miles a week on the road. I was willing to, do all the cross training, the visualizations, the mental affirmations, everything, the whole total body. He knew I would be willing to do it if the dream was big enough that he could get me there. So after the accident, about 6 months after the accident, when it could not, I mean, I crawled anywhere I needed to go for about the first 6 months, and got in with an orthopedic surgeon, you know, who I'd worked with before. And he was like, what on earth is going on with you? Let's get you in with a neurosurgeon. Got in the neurosurgeon, and he looked at the MRI and he said, I don't know how you're not a quadriplegic. He said, this is bad. And I said, well, I know how I'm not, but what do we need to do to get me back on the road? How can I want to train, I want to race, you know, I'm only 6 months out, you know, I've got another 8 months before trials start, you know, and my times would qualify for things. And I didn't want to see reality yet, but 5 major surgeries, shoulder, knees, a complete reconstruction and donor tendon and everything on a left ankle, and finally a back fusion. After those 5 major surgeries, I realized my purpose was not to race walk anymore. My purpose was to be a wife, to be a mother, and to learn to live in a body that wouldn't do what I used to be able to make it do, right? Just by forcing it and working hard and overcoming those things. And I threw a temper tantrum. I mean, I was not happy. I really wasn't. I kind of threw a big pity party. I didn't invite anybody, but I sure did drag them through it. So, you know, I drug my family through things a little bit. And I got to where I really liked how some of the medication, I mean, they threw me on a lot of medication. I couldn't put my head on a pillow for 2.5 months. I slurred my words for probably the better part of a year and a half. A lot of recovery has happened, and I am so much further down the road in a better place than I ever thought I could be. So my goal of going to the Olympics would have gotten me a uniform, right? But the path that this last 11 years has been, it has gotten me so much further than I ever could have gone just by getting a uniform. So my pity party, I kind of disappeared for a while. I disengaged. Now I'm a type A. I was a type A in a type A body. And let me tell you, I was doing things. And when you get to that point where your body won't do, but your mind wants to, it becomes a big battle, a really big battle. And I disappeared. I disengaged for probably almost 5 years. I felt like I was just this blob kind of going through life. Who cared about goals? Who cared about dreams? It didn't matter because the body hurts, right? I mean, pain stops, whether it's emotional pain, physical pain, spiritual pain, it stops. It's inhibiting to what we want to do. And so I realized my daughter kind of was the wake-up call. One day she looked at me and she was just like, just go take your medicine and go to bed. We prefer you not even to be around us. And I thought, how, with my family that I love beyond everything, they are my everything. They don't want me around. And I thought, I don't want to be that in life. And it was a big wake-up call. Called doctors, and I said, I need off all this medication. And they said, you won't be able to function in life without medicine. And I said, well, I'm not functioning with it. So then became the journey, and that's when I started painting. That's when I started the mind mapping and kind of beginning to dig deep within to all sorts of different things that happen in life. No matter how great a family you grow up in, there's trial, there's trauma, there's hurt. And we can all put on a good, happy face when we need to at different times. And as I've gotten to know different people, there were a lot of parts in my life that were not very different from the kids who never had clothes or didn't have food. There were different things. I was always provided for food and clothes. And my parents did the best they could in a lot of ways. But I think as parents, we fail. We fail sometimes. I have failed my children, especially those 5 years. And I've told my kids, listen, when you figure out how I screwed you up, please come talk to me because we can fix this, right? Because it's like, no life is perfect. We're all going to have challenges. And I think when we talk about junior high and high school kids, a lot of times, I don't think people give them the credit that they deserve. I don't think that they don't get the support that they need for what they're seeing, what they're hearing, and what they're experiencing sometimes. And I think as kids, it's really easy to say, I don't deserve to have that dream. I don't deserve to go and do this convention that I want to go to, or go do this art show, or get straight A's on this paper. And maybe because the support isn't coming from home, and teachers are trying, but there's so many kids they're trying to help that it's easy to fall through the cracks. And so I would say to the junior high and high school kids, if you feel like you're falling through the cracks, speak up. Speak up. Your voice is worth being heard. And that's 100%. So it's, if anything, coming out of this car accident, I now live to connect. I live to connect with people, the places around me, the road trips we've been on, nature, somebody else's pain. Can I connect with them and help them see a benefit to what they've gone through? Even if it's that down the road they may see somebody or know somebody that they're going to need to help through it. So I think, these kids they are the dreamers, right? We forget how to dream the older we get, I think, right? But you guys are working with the most amazing group of people on this earth, I think, at this time. And that is these kids that, given the right vehicle, given the right support system, and given the right encouragement, the world is unstoppable for them. They're unstoppable for the world. So yeah, that's where it's now. I truly believe it's all live to connect. Who can we connect with?
Laura, I love that.
Yeah.
I was thinking earlier, I'm not sure what part of your story that necessarily made me think this, but I was like, I feel like one of Laura's strengths must be connectedness, and kind of seeing, that all of this, there's a reason for these things happening. And even if it's even as something where we may be a little bit more short-sighted to it, that there's still something there. And I really love to just thank you for sharing your story from, the culmination of that dream to, unfortunately, the dream going away, to seeing how you process that grief, and just so transparently you sharing that as well. I mean, I think it is a very powerful story, a very moving story to know that in some senses you can lose things, but you can also pick up another dream in the process.
Absolutely.
And that part is really incredible. And yes, no, I wanted to ask, how did you work through those feelings of bitterness? And, sometimes I think middle school students, they also go through these emotions of, loss and even dreams being lost. I know that in the past 3 years, lots of students felt like they had things that they had planned, that they did lose. How did you, it feels like a strength of yours is that connectedness, but would you have any recommendations for students that are maybe trying to process those feelings right now?
That is a phenomenal question. I think looking at being real, I think when you grow up in a situation, or when you're faced with situations where, it doesn't matter what happened as you got out the door to go into the classroom. Supposedly you're supposed to just auto reset and go ahead and go right into class and be this attentive student and do well on your grades, be engaged in your classroom, be able to communicate and express yourself to your teachers or to the students. And frankly, you don't feel like it. You just want to go crawl in a hole and can everybody just leave me alone for a while? And I think one of the things that I had to become good at was speaking my truth. And it was speaking my truth to myself. Because I am a big dreamer, it's easy to go into a bad situation in your mind and kind of recreate it, make it seem like it wasn't so bad, when really, in fact, it was horrid. right? It was things that people should never have to experience. The loss of a parent, rape, I mean, any kind of horrible trauma that kids go through that, wait, you're not supposed to talk about that. You're not supposed to vocalize that happened. Be quiet about that. Shh, we'll deal with that later. Those types of things. Find your voice. And for me, it came through because I'd become such a master at kind of masking, reality in a sense, right? With being this dreamer, that I had to learn how to allow myself to have that space to explore how I truly felt about something without feeling like I was going to get, receive condemnation for it or shame or, well, you're too young. It shouldn't have affected you that way. It doesn't matter how old I was. It affected me. So what can I do to be true to those feelings? And that's why I got into mind mapping, just rampant, whatever your form is. Kind of mind mapping in my mind is Picasso's painting, or I'm sorry, Jackson Pollock art. Sorry, it's like you're just throwing stuff out there and it doesn't matter where it sticks or what it is, just get it out there. So whether that's in writing poems or musics or songs, in art, drawing, painting, fashion, sewing, sculpting. I don't care if the sculpting is mud pies. You create something, allow your body to express what it's feeling. And I think, we all tend to think, well, we have to live in this box. What's socially acceptable? How we present ourselves is what's socially acceptable, right? And so then we become even better at shoving our feelings down and ignoring those. So the more you begin to step out of that box and find someone you can trust, and talk to them, whether it's a friend or another adult somewhere, but get it out. The more you keep that inside, the long-term damage, it just propels itself. So it is about being true and raw with yourself, speaking how you feel, regardless of whether anybody else agrees with you or thinks you're right. Speak it. If you can speak it, then you can set it free. And then go create the feelings of what it's done to you in some modality. Run, climb mountains, hike, go fishing, whatever you're doing to get out and allow it time to continue to surface in the layers that it will surface in.
That's great, Laura. Thanks for speaking that truth. And I think at the time of this recording, such a now word and in-season word with students, especially just with their eyes, back on school, we're turning to school in whichever format. And I'm sure a lot of emotion that's just coming just along with that. And I love just your practical application to get out there and just create and find new things to do. Laura, we're going to take this conversation full circle. You said on the onset that you are a big dreamer. And so talk about today. What is on your mind? Do you have a particular big dream or project or an idea that you are looking forward to?
I love it. Absolutely. So I have always loved to bake and cook. And kind of my overall big dream is a physical location where I can help people live to connect with what is grown on this earth, how it's processed, how it's eaten and consumed, how we can take vegetables and dye fabrics. And I tend to, like I said before, not do anything small. I'm kind of a sink or swim, jump in and go for it. So my overall big goal is a physical location where that can all happen, where it's the artist retreats, the business programs, all of those types of things. And that's what kind of taking it from a reverse standpoint, where being at the farmer's market, getting out there, kind of talking with more people about what they like, what their dreams are, where they're headed in life. And so kind of what that farmer's market has led us to is, because bottom line, I kind of thought that through my art, that would generate the income I needed to purchase this piece of property and begin to build, whether it's cob houses, and people get to live, just pure off the land and experience and come camp and, just get into earth a little bit. I figure we learn the most when things are the messiest, right? And so get into the mess and have fun, and then have a good shower and clean up and get all dolled up. That's awesome. But so one of the things that's happened because of doing this farmers market is it's actually led us to, instead of opening up a new restaurant at this point, we're on the path to open a commercial kitchen where we're going to be able to get our goods and products out even more. And it's been kind of fun because I'm going to get to bring my husband back home a little bit. We're hoping within the next year or so that he can help oversee a co-packer, which is what we're wanting to do. Oklahoma is deficient in co-packers. There's not enough available. Lots of people with ideas, but not enough factories to actually help make it happen. And because we know the restaurant industry the way that we do, and the end consumer use and the manufacturing use of things, it just kind of goes seamlessly, where my dream and my husband's skills and abilities, we're all going to get to come together in that way. So that is a big, huge dream, and I am seriously throwing it out there. So who knows how it's all going to come up, but I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have the dream of the Olympics first. So if this is just the method and the vehicle to help get me wherever the next situation in life is, I know that it's only going to be bigger and better than where I'm at right now. So I'm not opposed to where it takes me.
Laura, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. And I know this, you at least have 2 people right now whose wheels are spinning about the dreams that you just shared.
True.
Awesome.
If I could only be the bubble in your head right now, Carolyn.
I'm like, there's like I literally just had 2 conversations recently about farming to table and doing some cool retreat type stuff. So yeah, no, definitely. I'm like, Michael, you're right. There is.
I love it.
They're definitely
awesome. Yeah, you guys have been an absolute pleasure. I am so thankful for what you do with your program, how you help the kids. You are that vehicle to help them have a safe place to dream with the support system to help encourage that dream to become a reality to whatever degree that is for them. Even if all that is right here and now, and they go on and do other things and never own their own business, that's great. You're helping them become better individuals. And I think that's what we're all here on this earth to do, is what's our own individual mission to accomplish, and how do we help others on the way?
Laura, thank you for sharing that. I feel like you got ahead of me, and our last question for you.
Sorry. Okay.
So good. You've shared so many great things throughout this conversation. But Laura, we do have something that's called our 60-second Dreamer and Doer Minute. So 121 other Dreamer and Doer guests like yourselves have been asked this question, but we want to give you another 60 seconds, 1 minute, just to share whatever else might be on your heart or in your mind that will encourage the dreamer and doer that is watching and listening. So Laura, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, set it, go.
All right. I would say first and foremost is that balance. You can run, but if you don't take the time to stop and pause, you won't be able to keep up. And so I think it's that whole, when we pray, we're talking, but when we meditate, we're listening. And I think that's the whole basis of where I find I am happiest in life, is when I have a pretty good balance of that just taking that time to go sit and listen. We don't always have to be doing. I think sometimes it's in the sitting and the listening that the path is made more clear for what we need to do. So with that, I would encourage everyone to just take some time to themselves, find a peaceful place, take a notepad, draw, sketch, and sit quietly and just allow your intuition to be more of your guide than the ping pong ball in a ping pong machine or whatever, kind of bouncing off everything else, so that you can stay more honed in and in tune with your personal guide. It will take you further than I think anything else.
Nice.
I love that. Laura, thank you so much for sharing not only just that piece, because I think that is incredibly important, and I've never heard it that way. Prayer can be like speaking, but meditation can be more like listening. I think we do a lot of speaking oftentimes, but not enough listening. I know that is for myself. Yeah, I was like, I'll tell on myself for that for sure. And I love getting to hear so many different aspects of your story, and how each dream really came about, and even just your response. And this may be the next vehicle to the next dream. But it just keeps. I think you absolutely have a dreamer spirit, and I hope this is a conversation that our students hear, and it encourages them to know that there's lots of different beginnings, and to be open to the ride as well, and also to be able to do difficult things. I think that's something else that really sticks out to me in your story, Laura, is that you definitely did do difficult things, and didn't shy away from them. And so very, very encouraging. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Laura, you have been such an encouragement to me. I know our dreamers and doers out there. For those of us that want to just learn more about you, or if it's the Carnegie Art Company, where's the best place that we can find that?
So I think the absolute best place, lauracarnegie.com. You can go to Laura Carnegie Facebook, I'll friend you, whatever. Carnegie Art & Co. on Instagram, and Carnegie Art & Company on Facebook. So any of those vehicles would be great. So
awesome. We'll include those in the show notes. I love it. Live to connect. Laura, again, thank you so much for your time and making us better today.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
Take care. See ya.
That was super awesome conversation.
So awesome. So encouraging, motivating, challenging, all the above, letter D. Also, at the same time, Carolyn, I'm not going to forget about the potential competition that you and I may have in the near future. This could be really exciting.
I'm gonna have to definitely practice more than just my form, I think, on that one.
I love it.
Are we doing a race walking one, or are we doing a plank competition again? Well, we can discuss this post podcast.
We need a rematch, but I like the run walking. I think we need to get into that. But Carolyn, Laura shared with us where we can find out more about her for our dreamers and doers that would like to learn more about Loveworks. Where can they go?
They can go to loveworksleadership.org, and we've got that's our website there, but we also have a really cool feature on our website, and it's it's where you can leave a question. So it's actually really neat. You can record a question, an actual audio question, either for the host here, Michael or myself, or even one of our future guests. And so we'll do our very best, of course, to make sure that it's a life-giving answer, and it's actually helpful. So yeah.
I love it. Well, dreamers and doers, we like to remind you towards the end that real leaders, they don't blend in, but they stand out.
Dream big.
And do your dream. See everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.